Thanks for joining us today on The Perfect X. My name is Sherry, and this is my co-host, Leigh.
Hey.
And today we are talking marriage with Leigh's wife of 15 years, Taren.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us, our first official guest.
Thanks for having me. I feel like it's going to be fun.
Well, it would be more fun if Leigh wasn't there, but, you know.
Couldn't agree more.
He's
Well, that's always an
unfortunately
option for later.
Yeah, are you trying to take his spot?
Yeah, that'd be
no.
good.
No.
Okay, well, we'll jump into the questions, but before we do, is there anything you want to let our listeners know about you, like specific? I mean, you want to share your age, how long you've been married. I was going to ask you this later, but, why you chose Leigh. But
The list is long.
the list, it's probably two things. He could fund my lifestyle.
Well, it's kind of funny actually. When we got together so young, and we were just starting out in life really when we got together. But we're both born the same year, so we're both turning 40 this year, which is crazy. But I'm cool with it. I think life gets better with age, so I'm totally fine with that. But yeah, we've been married since 2010, so this year will be 14 years together for like 16 maybe. 16 and a half.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I know.
I mean, Leigh and I have touched base before, but we'll definitely get into this with you too, because most people like married at 20 are definitely divorced like before, like in their 30s. So
right.
That's why it's like so exciting to have you on, because you guys have like a really good, well communicated, healthy relationship. And I think that's going to be really interesting for everyone to kind of hear how you guys navigate through that.
Totally. And I find relationships to be like so fascinating, just like talking about how different everybody is. And I definitely have thoughts about why people are divorced and why we're not. So yeah, you can ask
make
away.
sure I'm going to start with the question, but make sure we touch on that too, because I want to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So the first question I have for you is, what made Leigh stand out to you compared to others? Like, why him?
So Leigh and I were friends first. Like, we were kind of just in a group of friends. And I would say, like, he was really fun when I first, not that he's not fun now, but he was just like, he didn't care, and still doesn't, what anybody thinks about him. So I thought he was like awesome, because at that time I feel like other people were not like that. Other people were very concerned about what everybody thought about them. So he's like very honest, very funny. Like, his sense of humor was like, he's hilarious, right? He's hilarious. He made me laugh like right away, and he was just like very fun to be around. And I also feel like we connected as friends early on, and we got into like very deep conversations, which is really funny because I was listening to your guys' second episode yesterday talking about like Facebook Messenger and MSN, and I feel like we were like right at that time, Haley, where like It was like we were talking on MSN, and then we like switched to Facebook Messenger, and yeah, it's like so funny because even though we knew each other in person, so much of our relationship actually developed online. So I think that's crazy. Like, and we would just talk about like everything, like our past relationships and things that happened in the past and things like that. We just kind of connected on a very deep level. And it's funny because like, I was thinking about this, and I'm like, the thing that I really like loved about him is that he was like a man's man. And like, I remember we were hanging out as friends, and we were both like just in the last couple of months when we started hanging out in person as friends, as two single people. So we were both single, and we started like hanging out in a group, and he was like a man's man. And I like love that about him. And I remember I bought this desk from Walmart because I just moved out on my own, and it came in like 300 pieces, I swear to God. And he had it like all lined up and organized, and he was like putting together, and I'm like, this is like kind of hot. Like, I kind of like it.
Bet. I bet. It's funny you say that, because I was just with one of my guy friends in Vancouver, and he was kind of saying, like, talking about like girls always trying to get guys to do those type of things nowadays, and he can do it too, right? But he feels like, and he was telling me and his sister, and he was like, I feel like girls are just trying to make me do stuff for them. And like, no, we're trying to recreate what our dads did for, like, because there's so few manly, like,
Yeah.
guys usually just pay to get stuff done now. And I think as women, we kind of miss, like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I love how my dad could just take care of stuff. And sometimes then you meet a guy and you're like, I'm curious, like, is he like a guy's guy? Like, if I bring an IKEA thing together, can he put it together? Because it's kind of like, it's attractive. It's not like we were telling him, they're not using you so they don't pay like $40 for someone else to do it. They just want that attraction. It's very, very attractive. Like, we grew up manly. Like, it's not like our dads could call up someone and they'd come and do it back in the day. They did it
No.
themselves. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, it's some part of us, it's like watching our dads put together like our Barbie dream house. It's like, this is like how it should be. Like, but
Yeah.
it's funny that guys
Yeah.
would think that like they're being used. It's like, unless you've already been put like firmly in the friend zone and you feel like you're already stuck in the friend zone, and then a girl asks you to put together something from IKEA, you're probably like not going to get out of the friend zone, but like, you never know. It might make her
It
look
might
at
be
you in a
worth
different
seeing if
way.
you can. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It might be worth. They just might be able to see if you can get out of the friend zone. It
Yeah.
may work. Wasn't it on Sex and the City that like some guy came to do something with Charlotte and she got so excited and she slept with him after? Like, he put something together or something. I forgot. Her handyman was like
Oh,
moving.
I don't remember that
So
episode, but it sounds legit. That sounds
yeah,
legit.
it is.
Yeah. So
Well,
that's
that's
like one thing that I just really liked about him. I like that he was like a man's man, and he like not just like knew how to do stuff, but if he didn't know how, he would like figure it out. And like the beginning of our relationship, oh, I remember one time too, I like somehow hurt myself at work, and he like I was like, I hurt my
You
foot,
rolled
like
your
I can't
ankle
even
or
walk.
something.
I rolled my ankle, yeah. And he showed up. We've been dating like weeks, literally like maybe 2 weeks. And he showed up at my work with like snacks in his work
oh my
coveralls and was
god.
like, I'm taking you home, taking you to my house, like take care of you. He like put me in his bed and like brought me snacks. And I was just like, where have you been all my life?
Does he still do stuff like that? That is so cute.
He does still like take care of me. I think like, we both have so much going on, but I think that's like when he like wants to show me love, that's definitely like how he does it. Like he'll like, set me up a
The
bath
little
or like
things.
make me a cup of tea. Yeah, totally. Little
That's
things.
so cute. Guys,
I like,
take notes. That's how
yeah,
you
exactly.
go to IKEA, buy the girl something, put it together, and then push her on something and take care of her. Or get someone else to push her on the street.
Yeah, I think that you
No
can't
love.
push. If you do the pushing, you're back to square one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even square one. You may have a restraining order. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, all right. Did you want to get married yet?
I don't know if I was like one of those girls that like dreamed about having a wedding. Like I always like in my mind was like, yeah, like I'm gonna get married and I want to have a wedding. Like when we did get engaged, I was like, I want like the white dress, I want my grandparents there, I want like the traditional kind of thing. But I don't know if I was like obsessed with marriage, but like I feel like I always had that like priority of like I want to share my life with somebody. And I don't know if Leigh's told you this, but I was like a serial monogamous. Is that what it's called? Like I was in
Mhm.
long-term relationship, long-term relationship, long-term relationship without much of a break in between. Even though I feel like I'm not really like the type, I'm not like a person that like I'm very dependent. Like I can't be alone because I'm fine with being alone, but it's just like kind of worked out that way, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I feel like because I always wanted that, I wanted to have that like relationship, somebody to like share things with. That was like one of the first things that kind of like happened in my life. Like we were like 23, I think, when we decided to, be together, and then got engaged fairly quickly. So not necessarily marriage, but definitely like wanted that like partnership,
Now, I know I was gonna ask you this later, but I'm actually curious because since you've said it, I'm like so curious. Why do you think that? Because you guys were so young. Like, I can't imagine. I had a really good boyfriend at like 19 to 21. He was great, but I can't imagine like marrying him. Like, he wouldn't even make sense in my life today. Why do you think that you guys lasted from like 23 to 40? Like, I mean, and more and on, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's because it's hard. Like, you're still finding out who you are in your 20s. I know most people, like, once they hit 30, they're so confused. Like, they don't know themselves anymore.
totally.
So
And
it's hard to do that with somebody.
yes. Okay, so there's like a couple reasons why, and like me and Leigh have had many, many in depth conversations about this. But the first thing is that we had both had 2 long-term relationships each before we got together. And they were like very different relationships than what our relationship was. So I feel like if you are with somebody from the age of like say 17 to 23 and then you get married, you're only with one person, so that's all you really know. So when Leigh and I got together, and I think he sort of felt the same, we were like, this is different than the relationships that I've had in the past, and it feels so much better and so much more right and makes so much more sense. Like it just felt different that we
I
were
think
like,
it was easy too. Like I don't think like everything the relationships from the past for both of us were like square peg round hole. And I think with us,
100%.
like everything was a lot just easier. Like we're just like, let's just do this. Like I talk to even people like when I'm talking to Sherry, it's like all these things people come up with for not being in a relationship. It's just bullshit. And so like when with us, I always felt like it was very like natural. Like it wasn't like a battle. It wasn't like one guy wants to do this and someone wants to travel, someone wants to have kids, and the other person wants all the opposite things, and which you see a lot of. I'm like, we didn't have any of that. Like we're mostly just on the same page about everything. So it was just
What
so
what
much
is
easier.
what is interesting is like from an outsider, like you guys both do have different hobbies, which but like Leigh and I have talked about this for how you guys make it work, which is really interesting. Like it seems like instead of trying to drag that person into your hobby that isn't of their interest, you guys accept that that's their interest and you give them time for it versus like him trying to like he was talking about how like you dance or like I always say like I've always watched your like when you were obsessed with Target and you would go down there and I would like watch your stuff on Facebook or Instagram and you know and obviously like knowing Leigh I knew he wasn't like gung ho for Target but he always allowed the space for you to have that interest or and you probably with all his car stuff and his hobbies you allow him the space to have it and as an outsider looking at it, it looks like that's one of the reasons why you guys really thrive too it's like you're not forcing each other to partake in things that doesn't interest the other one and not guilting them for taking the time to do it either.
I think that's so true. And the other thing is that I think we found ways to make that work. Like when when we were younger, and we didn't have Ariana, Leigh was really into like flying model airplanes, and I love reading. So I would bring like my lawn chair and my books, and I would read while he was there. So we still were like together, but I would do my own thing. Or even now when like I have dance and things like that, like he stays home and takes care of Ariana and has our like quiet, has like a quiet night. So we do support each other, but we also kind of find ways to like still spend time together. Like if he's got a big project in the garage, I'll come down and hang out with like the fire pit, and like we kind of just try to like still keep connected about it without like forcing each other to like fully be involved.
Which is really interesting because that's one thing I do hear from people a lot and I see it a lot is like you're forcing that person to partake in something and then they resent you. But you guys seem to find a way of like engaging, giving space for it, and that's so healthy. I have one question that's actually not on here, but you just kind of popped in my head. So if you let me know if you feel comfortable even answering. But well, because like you guys were in your young 20s, so obviously by the time you hit 30, like things about you must have changed. How do you think you navigated through that made you guys last this long?
um
Or you didn't have
I
something
do
that was so significantly different? That's
we did. I feel like we fundamentally, I think who we are hasn't changed, but we've definitely gone through stuff that, like one of us has had a hard time, but both of us have had a hard time. Like we've gone through becoming parents and like major stressors and COVID and all of that stuff. And I think because I think you have to like this is one of my biggest life mottos is you have to give people room to grow. And we both have given each other room to grow and change. Like I feel like we haven't changed that much where we're like completely different people, but we both grown. So it doesn't feel like we've changed or become worse. It feels like we've grown and become better, if that makes sense.
no, it does. And I think the biggest thing you said is you gave space for the change, which
Yes.
is exactly like giving space for people's differences. So that's great. I mean, that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, so one of the other questions is, were you nervous before the big day? Like, did you think you were making the right choice? I mean,
I
everyone has that thought, so it's not specific to you, Leigh, which she
No,
said yes.
no.
I didn't think. For me, I didn't have any issues. It's so many things are not like they're portrayed in the movies, like having a child and getting married. I found they were totally different than what people make them out to be. And there was no stress. I don't know who's going into their wedding day thinking maybe I shouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like
I've never had that, because I've never been engaged, but I hear it all the time. Like,
oh,
people say,
it's
like,
in like every
you
movie too. I'm
panic.
like, I've long before we decided to, have a kid or get married. I personally, for me, it was already over and done with decision. So it wasn't. I just enjoyed the whole experience.
That's actually really interesting because it is in the movie. So I always assume that everyone has like a second thought,
Yeah, I think that's more a movie misconception. I think same with having
I think
kids. Like
so too.
we're like, oh man, is like baby going to be born in the taxi on the way to the hospital, or whatever, and you end up being in the hospital for like 2 days waiting for something to happen, right?
But it actually is interesting. It's funny because you're like, before I did it, I had already made the choice. So you're right. If the commitment's there. But there are people who panic, they say, right before the baby even comes out. But again, that's movies, so maybe it's not true.
It is movies. We had no panic. I'm sure people do, because I think it happens a lot faster. For us, it was very slow. But in response to the like nervous question, I think if you have those kind of anxieties over on your wedding day or on the day before your wedding day, you probably did not have the moment that we both had where we're like, this is totally the person I was meant to be with all along. Because we had that feeling, there was not going to be any like dramatic wedding thing that was like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? Because I already knew, like I already had felt like for the, the time we were engaged, which was like basically 2 years at that point, at the time of our wedding, I was like, of course we're like meant to be together. There was definitely like wedding stresses, but it was never about like us getting married.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was never that. Yeah.
That's, I mean, and you kind of answered the next question, which was what made you think he was the one. But is there anything you want to elaborate on that, or?
I just feel like I sort of like, yeah, definitely like knew, like we just like loved being together. And like I feel like because we could just do anything together, like for as long as we've been together. And I remember like our tiny little basement suite, like one time we sat in the kitchen, like I think I was like sitting on the counter and he was like leaning against the fridge, and we talked sitting in our tiny little kitchen for like 3.5 hours. Like we always have just like connected that way. And like I just can't imagine like sharing my life with anybody else, because we are just connected that way. So I feel like that's like I just kind of like knew. It's not like, oh, he has like these qualities, which like he does obviously have good qualities, but it was kind of just like the way that it felt. It just felt really good. It felt like we've always said, like, we could go get an oil change together and like have fun and enjoy the time together. Like whatever we're doing, I make him stop and get me a coffee, and we just like have fun together and try to like connect and talk about things. So I feel like it's like just been like that as long as I could remember.
Do you think that's all because you built that foundation of the friendship first? Like, do you think you could have had that right away, or do you think that something has to be built on? Like, and I'm asking that for myself. Like, I always think, like, I always feel like if I meet the guy, like, I'm always telling people, like, I am not getting that feeling. I'm not getting that feeling, But I have dated someone who felt like my best friend, and he felt like that to me right off the bat. But I was so young, So maybe I don't know, like, maybe I was expecting different things. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, I always feel like people always tell me, like, oh, you build that. And I'm like, no, because I think, like, I meet people, like, even on a friendship level sometimes, and you just connect and you continue to connect. So I would think it would be the same if I met the one. Do you think it's something that's built, or something that, I mean, I guess it's both. It can be both.
Yeah. I think
But
it
I
can be
mean,
both. Like for us, we met, and like when we met, I never ever had the thought like he's the one, because I was just like, oh, he's like fun and funny. And then we built our relationship completely as a friendship, because we were both like, I had a long-term relationship. He was like dating people. Like it was just never like that until all of a sudden it like was. So like we were friends. We hung out in groups. And then we were like talking. And then I think one time he was like, we should like hang out together. And we'd never hung out alone as two single people, even though we'd been friends for like probably a year and a half or 2 years at that point. And then as soon as we were like alone together, after being so connected as friends, it was like instantly like, oh, this is like what is going to happen now. Like there was no stopping it at that point, basically. So I do think like you should give friends a chance. You never know.
I love that you say that, like that was built on though too, because I think that people who've been single like myself for so long, we're constantly like I was like, we've had this conversation like through other podcasts where like, oh, like how many dates you have to give it. And I used to always be like, I know right away, know right away. And then like Leigh and I had this long conversation once on a podcast, and like after everything he pointed out, I was like, oh, maybe you should give it, because they say give it 3 to 5 dates if it's the foundation is there, you know? And I think we forget because we get so sick of dating. But what you're explaining, and it is the reality, like it can be built on, but the rest of us are like, oh, I didn't feel it. You don't want to go on a second date sometimes, even though there's a good foundation. So this is a great reminder for those of us who are single. Like, people do build upon their feelings, and it
Absolutely.
makes you. It's a good reminder for the rest of us.
Yeah, because you might think I have not met the person that I'm like supposed to be with, or the person I'm going to be in a relationship with, and you might have, and you just didn't look at them that way. It's like, haven't you ever seen like a rom-com movie, or like read like a romantic comedy book?
It's
like
true.
It's friends to lovers. That's literally
That's
like
true.
a genre of it, and it's
I think you
popular.
just get older and you become more cynical. So you're like, well,
Totally.
if it wasn't fucking instant, like it's not there. But I mean, like you said, it took you a year and a half, and then you're like, oh, actually. So I mean, that's great. It's a good reminder.
Yeah.
What would you say are the most significant qualifying factors, like to make a lasting marriage? Like, what would you say is, like, if you can give your top 3 things that are so important to make a marriage last?
Top 3 things. Okay. So I feel like it kind of ties into like another thing that we were going to talk about, which was like, what advice would you give if somebody was about to get married? So like, the first thing is that, like, it's not about the qualities in the other person. It's about you. It's about who you are and like what you want. So if you're like, it's not just like the same for everybody else. Like, I believe that people need to like really look at who they are and what they want. Like Leigh said, if you have somebody that like loves to travel, and they're just like trying to find somebody they're like attracted to, and they pick somebody that's a total homebody, they're never gonna like be able to have that relationship and travel. So you have to like really look at like what you want. Like the qualities are like different for every person. I mean, there's like, like honesty and like um being able to like connect, communication, but all those things can be built. So that's why I'm like, that's such an interesting question, because it's not about, it's like, how open are you? How open is the other person? Because you can build good communication. You can build trust and honesty. So that's like a really complicated
What would you
answer.
say, like, what would you say, like, were 3 things that built, like if you say like everyone around you is probably getting a divorce who got married in their 20s, and you're like, well, these 3 things have been the reason why Leigh and I have been able to stay together. Like, what would you say were those 3?
I think
I
communicating
would,
is the main thing. We
yeah,
always do, because like you can have any kind of problem, but you're like, I think a lot of people don't say anything and they just kind of drift apart.
That's a
totally.
really good one.
I think
Yeah.
communication is so key, and that's not a personality trait. Like, I don't know if we really had any like personality traits that like made us good like spouses, other than we're both like very like caring people, and we care for people in like our own specific way. But yeah, communication is like everything, and we like did not always have good communication. Like, that's something we built literally from scratch, like from not knowing how to communicate with each other at all.
And I think a lot of
That's
people
awesome.
don't know how to take criticism or deal with communication, in a positive way. I think too many people turn it into an argument, like not deliberately, but it seems, we're pretty good at saying, staying on topic, and then being like kind of constructive about it, instead of just like, throwing crap around at each other. It's like we try to like stay sort of on point, and like, say, if how could I improve this situation, and what you want me to do, what should I do? And I think just sort of staying on point, instead of just getting into a blowout and then letting it drag on, and it just drifts around and into no real point to it.
I think what most people have a problem with is when someone says, like, when you do this, it bothers me. They take it right away to such a insult,
Yeah.
versus like, it's not that you're a bad person, just this specific way of you doing something hurts me as an individual. Like, I have grew up, like, we all grew up that like men don't communicate feelings. Women are supposed to always put a smile on their face. That's how our society was when we were growing up. We weren't great communicators. And I think now like the society like over communicates sometimes a little
Yeah.
much, but for the people in between, like it's so hard, and it's so many of us I think are learning to just to express ourselves and to take criticism, take conversation not as criticism, but rather as a way to build a healthier relationship, you
Yeah.
know?
That's the
It's
main thing, is that, just like you said, just being able to focus it in a positive way. Just, say, "Hey, these are the issues. This is how we should fix them," or "I think we should fix them." Instead of, I feel like too many people just say, like, for example, someone becomes more outdoorsy, and then instead of like talking to their partner and be like, "Hey, I'd like to do more outdoorsy things," they just kind of start drifting and then being like, "Well, I'm a changing, I'm a different person." And it's like, well, if you just said to your partner, like, "Hey, I'd like to do more outdoorsy things," maybe you could find something outdoors that you could do together. But I think people just don't communicate.
exactly.
And then by the time they start communicating, they've drifted really far apart.
And also, I think another thing is like, I don't know if like society does it now, but I know with our when we were growing up, all of us like we were taught like as women to whine men into being submissive into what you wanted. Like just keep nagging him, just keep whining him. And that's just like who the fuck wants to be whined at? Like if someone whines at me into something, I will completely do the opposite just because you're whining and it's irritating.
Yeah.
And like that was like how we raised women to communicate. We were like, oh, like you can change him, just keep pushing him. People don't like being pushed. But exactly like you said, if you're like, hey, I have this interest and I want to do this, would you like to join me, or is there a way we can do it together? Is so much better than you're right, like saying like I'm different, I'm new, this is the new me. And that person's like, well, are you excluding me or are you leaving me out? Like it's just such a negative way of communicating. It's I guess like taking the ego out. You got to take the ego out to receive and to speak.
Yeah. If you
I
want,
talk about that all the time too. Sorry.
no, it's fine.
Um, yeah, like we've talked about this recently, that so much of relationships are like ego, and if you're trying to like be the person that's right, like I got to make him see my point of view so that he changes his behavior. It's like you're never going to get anywhere on either sides of a relationship. And I think for us, like realizing that, taking our ego out of the relationship, maybe like 4 years ago we started like really working on this, and not trying to be right and just like listening. Like I would say like, hey, this makes me feel kind of whatever. And then he would be like, oh, instead of like getting like defensive, he'd be like, what can we do about that? And like, instead of like, yeah, being defensive and being like, oh, they're saying that I'm doing something wrong. It's more like, how can we work on this together? And that was like such a game changer for our relationship. It's hard
It
to
seems
like
like it.
explain.
No,
Yeah,
no,
like it's hard.
no, no, you are explaining it well because what you're saying is you're not really attacking the core of the other person. You're not degrading them to get them to do what you need them to do. You're more building a way of communicating that helps you guys move in the same direction. And I think that's the biggest thing is like a lot of times when we are trying to get our point across, we have to tear, there's a saying like, don't tear someone else to build yourself up. But that's
Yes.
unfortunately the way a lot of people communicate.
Hmm.
And I think also like the ego thing too comes is like also receiving like maybe like for instance you're someone who takes a lot longer and you whine a little bit or a lot longer to let's say get ready, and every time you're getting ready I come in and I'm like hurry up, that way of communicating makes me feel like I'm holding you back. So it's like if I came to you and it's like, hey, can you not speak to me like that, then you maybe won't be receptive. You'll be like, why are you so, what do you mean speak to you like that? You're the one that's taking so long. There's no reception. Like you're being aggressive in your form of communication. I'm telling you, you're speaking to me in a negative way and you're taking it with your ego, thinking I'm some asshole. It's not positive. So it's just like
Totally.
being open to receiving and to understanding, I guess. Is there any other communication tools you think you learned over time?
Well, before you I'll move on to this, I want to say, like, this one thing for me that was a big difference is you don't have to like convince me that the way you feel is right or wrong. I just need to know. I kind of had to accept that if, say, Taren felt a certain way about something, that's how she felt. And I didn't have to agree with it necessarily. I just had to understand that's how she felt. And I think a lot of times you try
That's
to
a good
convince
one.
the other person that that's wrong. Like, okay, you don't like me going out with my buddies to do whatever, you're wrong. It's okay. Well, how about I just, for me, I'm like, look, this is how you feel. I accept that. And then we try to find like a middle ground or something. But that was a huge game changer for me, trying to realize that I didn't have to convince someone that they were right or wrong, that I was right and they were wrong. I just had to understand that this is how that makes that person feel. And I need to accept that that's how it is.
Even if you don't,
Even if
that's
I
such a
don't agree
game
with it,
changer
right?
overall.
It
Yeah,
was
even
for
if you
me,
don't feel that way. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's great. Actually, that's such a good way of thinking about it. Be like, you don't have to accept that you don't like. I think the problem is like sometimes someone will feel some way you don't feel, and you feel like, well, I wouldn't feel like that, so you have to. I can't accept how they
Like, you have to
feel.
convince them that they're wrong, which was, I think, something I did before I realized this. Like, it would always be like, "Well, no, you're wrong, and I'll tell you why, and I'll argue you why." And but now I'm like, there isn't. It's not about being right or wrong. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. That's the end of it. You don't have to justify it, And there's things you can work on, but if this is how you feel about something, that's you just need to accept that that's how that person feels, and don't try to convince them that they're wrong and you're right.
I think that could also be portrayed on how you do things. Like, for instance, maybe I do something one way and you do it another, and I keep trying to convince you to do it that way
Hmm.
because I think it's the right way. And I think that is just like the same kind of perspective. Like, you have to accept that people don't feel and do things the same way. And you have to be okay with that. You can't force someone to do things that make them uncomfortable
Yeah.
or feel a way that they don't feel is right. So I think that goes back to like how in the beginning when um it's like when you guys were all saying like it's just accepting people like somebody and
Hmm.
supporting them and not trying to make them into who you want them to be.
Yeah.
So that
Totally.
yeah, but I love that. I love that you say like the feeling one is so that's like one of my biggest hurdles, I think. Like because I'm not a very sensitive person. So when someone comes to me and they're like, this really bothered me, I'm like, it wouldn't bother me. And then I'm like trying to convince them why they're being oversensitive about something. And you're right. It's just like it's kind of like gaslighting them for having emotions,
Yeah,
just
it's hard
because
when
you
you're like
feel it.
emotionally strong, which you are, to have someone be upset about it. But yeah, once you can be like, in my head, that wouldn't upset me, but this upsets them, and that's enough to be valid.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's so true. It's so true. The next question we kind of asked, so I'll just go to this one. It says, people say the seventh year is the hardest in marriage. Do you agree?
I don't think that it's like a certain year of marriage that is a problem. Like, I
I don't
think
even
that
remember
people
what
probably,
was the seventh. What were we doing in the seventh year of marriage? I don't even remember
yeah,
what year
I
was that.
feel like,
2017.
yeah, that would have
That
been
was a good one.
2017.
I
It
lost
was like,
I lost a bunch of weight that year, and like, God,
yeah,
yeah,
we
no.
were doing really well. Yeah, I think it depends like what sort of hits you in life and what's going on in your life and like what kind of changes you have. Like I think we had challenges sort of like at different times. But we never really let things get boring. And I think when they say 7 years, they mean like things get boring after 7 years because you've been with the same person for 7 years. But we've never been boring.
No.
maybe we've
You
had
guys, you
maybe
guys
we've
have
had
never
boring
had.
periods.
So how do you
Like
guys get
no,
out of your boring periods?
like spending time together, I would say, like and like I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, like spicing things up. We won't
Yeah,
get
you can
into
say.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like a big part of it for us. Maybe not for everybody else, but like that's a big part of it for us. That's always like a bust through the boring plateau activity.
But like going
But
wheeling and stuff, like we go to like a
yeah.
lot of places that a lot of people can't go, and we see a lot of neat places. So if we're in a bit of a rut, well, like, let's Ariana doesn't really like it because it's really a rough ride and she doesn't feel good. So I'm like, well, she'll go to the grandparents for the day and we'll go like explore some high up lake or something cool. And it's just this is us personally. Like obviously this isn't for everybody, but we'll just go on like a bit of an adventure. And
Yeah.
it usually makes you it kind of bonds you a bit more, like especially when we're getting into like rowdy like situations, like we're almost rolling over and stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
My friends do not understand that particular activity and why I think that's fun. But I think like one thing that I thought about too with like the roommate phase is I'm like, it's okay if you go through a phase where you feel like roommates, but you got to stay like best friends. If you're not like, if things don't feel like super like passionate or romantic or whatever, you're not going on lots of dates, you can still be best friends. You can still have fun together. Like, I remember through COVID, like me and Leigh watched probably every comedy special that was on like Netflix. And like we had a lot of fun doing that. We just kind of like found things to do and have fun and like laugh together. So like
And putting the
if you're going
phones
through,
away is something we do too, right?
oh, huge. Yeah.
Like we'll say, oh,
Do,
let's put our phones in the bedroom and like we'll watch a movie or we'll just hang out, like do a puzzle or just do whatever we're doing, wrap Christmas presents. But that's a big one because the phone is bad for both of us. So like putting it away has been a big help. Like, that's another one where you can it's too easy if it's right within reach. So we'll plug them in on the nightstand and like go in the living room. And then next thing you know, we've been talking for like 2.5 hours.
that's
Yeah.
actually really smart because there's no way for anyone to interrupt you.
Yeah, and it's a must do, because if it's within arm's reach for me, I'll just pick it up and start fiddling around. Even if I'm still talking and listening, but I'll just be fiddling around doing something else. So I just put it out of sight, and then you just, next thing you know, you're having a long conversation, or you're watching a movie, or time flies.
That's a good one.
But you've
That's
got
a
to make
really
that
good
effort, recognize when you're heading down that like towards a bit of a rut. I think someone has to say, "Hey, we're in a bit of a rut," and the other person has to be like, "Yeah, you know what? Even if you don't necessarily feel that way, like I'm very busy with work sometimes," and Taren will have to be like, "Hey, like we got to spend time together. Like we can't just be like on our phones, working, sleeping, and then working again." So just make time, and then when you notice a rut's kind of happening, just try to rectify it quickly. Don't let it really just drag on.
That's a
I
really
also
good
think
piece of
it's like
advice.
I think it's like not taking things personally too, which like Leigh and I are really good at doing. Like if he forgets to like empty the dishwasher, or I'm like really tired, or he's really busy with work, we don't like tell each other, oh, like he forgot the dishwasher because he doesn't like value my time or whatever. I like will literally be like, he's been so busy this week, so exhausted. Like of course the dishwasher is like the last thing on his mind. So we like kind of have that sort of mentality with each other where we're not
Yeah,
taking
we
things
don't make it. We don't
personally.
take it as like a dig at the other person. Yeah, like if I
Yeah.
forget to put the garbage out on my way out the door, like if I'm leaving really early one morning to get to a job site and I run out and I kind of forget, Taryn will just do it, and I'll get home. I'm like,
That
oh crap, the garbage is out. But then it's like just instead of like within reason, like just giving the other person some breathing room, right? Because we're both very busy, like with our jobs and with Ariana and other hobbies and stuff. So it's easy to get overwhelmed. Like a couple days I've come home and just fallen asleep on the couch as soon as I get in the door. That's not normal, but that's been what's going on this week. So it's good
yeah.
to give each other a little bit of slack here and there.
That's a
Yeah,
really
we
good
like
one
kind of
because I think people have that with a lot of like even you can have that with a roommate, you know? And
Yeah.
that's a really hard one to get out of. Like I know me personally, I would probably be like, "Oh, like I can't believe I asked him to do this and he forgot and he ignored it." And I like talking your way out of it like you were saying, Karen, like that's hard to do sometimes, like when you're mad about
mhm.
having to do it. So, like do you ever just take like a moment and remind yourself or you just naturally got in the habit of being like
I
it's
think
not
we
personal?
I think we got in the habit of like giving each other a lot of grace in our relationship on like what things are working on, and like what things we are both working on. And I think too, like household like responsibility issues are not relationship issues. So like people like might wrap them up together and be like, oh, he doesn't help me with this or he doesn't do that. But like what about your relationship? Like there's managing the house, but then there's your actual relationship, and they're not the same thing. But we do give each other like a lot of grace when it comes to like the household stuff. And one thing I've noticed that has really helped us, I don't know if I haven't even said this to Lee, so I don't even know if he has noticed or not, but we say thank you for like everything. Like if he's like thanks for dinner, I'll be like thanks for emptying the dishwasher, like things that are like our jobs anyways. Like we of course we're
Show
going to do them.
appreciation. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we both say thank you all the time, even though things like clearly like I'm going to be the one to make dinner because I'm the one who like knows how to cook, but and he's the one who knows how to do things with the car, like put air in the tires or whatever. But like we say thank you a lot to each other, and I feel like that has really like helped our household kind of go smoother because we both
Yeah.
just feel appreciated for what we do all the time, even though it's like kind of our roles. Like we have our things that we do and like our strengths and things like that, but like just being appreciative of it, I feel like makes it easier to do those things because we know we're appreciated.
Well, one thing I
Is it
noticed is we used to say, it's amazing, and it's probably true of everybody, how much you think without saying it, like as far as appreciation. Like, I'll think I'm appreciative of something, but I just won't say it, and I almost forget that I haven't said it out loud. So then when we start talking about who's doing what, I'm like, I'm sure I said thanks for, doing whatever. And Taryn's like, no. I'm like, oh, I definitely thought it, and it's not the same thing. So you've got to, and that's one thing I've really struggled with is like vocalizing, just little things I noticed like in passing, like, oh, like thanks for like, putting some stuff out for me for food to take to work. Like I'll just run out the door and I'll come out to the kitchen. There's like a protein shake on the counter. I'm like, like, and I would just drink it and leave. But instead, now I try to like really make an effort to be like, hey, thanks for that. Like that's saves me, stopping for food or dipping into my lunch or whatever. But it's amazing how much you don't actually say out loud when you're trying to like be
these are
appreciative.
such good pieces of advice because I think like what people forget is that the little things are actually the bigger things in the overall picture. So
Totally.
it's like the tiny little building blocks that either build a resentment or build a healthy relationship. And
Mhm.
like one thing you said that just kind of really blew my mind is like that the relationship problems and the household problems are not the same. And I think that's such a good reminder. And again, like when both of you are saying, like, just saying thank you, and when we think it, like, yeah, I'm grateful in my mind, but actually not, the other person doesn't know that. So these are, I think, such good building blocks for healthy relationships. I mean, on behalf of the listeners, I'm going to say thank you.
Well, and that's a love language thing too. Like we didn't even like talk about that, but I did make Leigh do the quiz a couple years ago, and mine is like words of affirmation. Like I love when he like says nice things to me, which is probably like the last thing he would think of doing, but he does like make an effort to say those things because that means a lot to me. If somebody says thank you, or like, you know, he'll send me like a cute text, or like just say something nice, like a compliment, you know, saying you're doing a great job with our daughter or whatever. That kind of stuff totally like fills my cup.
And on the
So,
same token, like it's funny when you know that what the other person's love language is, you start to recognize the efforts they're making. Like for me, I guess, like I always want to make life easier. So like if Taren, I'll buy her cords for her phone and adapters so we can use the new cords with our chargers, and it's like silly things to like the surface level. But if your love language is like, you know, sort of like, I don't know if it's like gifts or just just essentially making someone's life easier. I'm always doing that. I'm like, oh hey, like if we I'll get these tubs and you can throw the crap in the back of your truck instead of it blowing all over the place or being stuffed in the cab, or I'll get you a phone cord, or and it's silly things. They're $5-10 things. It's not the money, but it's like making life so much easier. But her love language being words of affirmation, she might think I'm not doing things to sort of fill her cup, as she says. But I'm like, when she stops and thinks what my love languages are, she's like, oh, he's doing all these things in his own way that are like you know, have good intentions, even though I don't think that. I just think, oh, he bought me this little doodad that's $5 that I can plug into my charger. But when you realize that's the other person's love language, you're like, oh, it's like your dog brings you something. You're like, the fuck I want a slipper for, right? But like a dog, that's like that's a big thing for them. They're like, I fucking got this thing for you, right? So it helps to as much to know your own love language as it is to know the other person's, and see the efforts they're making using their, even though they should try and use the other person's love language, you do notice things they're doing because that's their love language, right?
Yeah, you have to like look for them. And like one of Leigh's I know too, which I always have to like pay close attention to it, is his, like, even though he shows, that's like I would think acts of service.
Yes,
and he
I
does
couldn't
like
think of what
so
it's
many
called.
things. Yeah, so many things to make my life easier. Like we needed, like I had all of this Christmas stuff plugged in. So he like ordered me a remote that like turns on like 3 different plugs, and like just little things like that he like loves to do. But with him, I noticed too, like one of the ways that he like really receives love is like spending time together. So he'll say like, let's watch a movie tonight. And whereas I'm like so tired, maybe don't feel like watching a movie necessarily, but like that's what he's saying. I want to spend time with you. Like I want to like snuggle with you on the couch and watch a movie and like connect with you. So it's like you really have to be looking for these things in like a positive, open-minded way, I feel like, in order for like love languages to work at all.
Yeah. These are great. I'm loving this. Okay, another one. And I'm like, honestly, I'm blown away with the stuff you guys are sharing. No wonder you're still together. Do you guys follow the never go to bed angry rule? And if you do, how do you? Sorry, if yes, what do you do so you don't? And if no, how do you wake up and resolve the conflict later?
I don't recall ever in recent years anyway going to bed angry.
No.
We just we don't even have, like I've said before, we don't even have like big fights or anything like that. It's always just like a discussion. So we'll always wrap it up, even if we're like, maybe we'll pick this up another day, but we always wrap it up, and we'll end up watching a show or chatting or whatever off about something else. You know, I can't even think of a time we went to bed just like seething mad about something, you know.
No, it's been like literally years. And I think too, it's because of our communication, and we don't let things get that bad. Like if you really think about in a relationship, like how mad, what would that person have to do in order for you to have to go to bed angry, or like sleep on the couch or whatever? Like they would have to do something like pretty bad, like, you know, like say something really mean or forget something really important or be like just a total jerk. And that's just not something that like happens in our relationship. I think when we were younger and less wise, we would get in fights that were so stupid. And now that our communication is like so much better, we literally like do not get in fights. I would say we get like at the most annoyed with each other. Like that's it. We might go to bed and just like not really like, just go to bed, but we're never like mad. I can't remember the last time I was like actually like mad. Like
because you address things head on.
Yeah, I would
Yeah, like,
definitely
we just
not.
don't.
I would definitely make an effort to, if you are the type of people that get into like sort of heated arguments, I would definitely make an effort not to go to bed angry, because I think it just like festers and it's no good.
You don't
But
sleep
I also
good.
think some people need, like, I personally need time. To
Yeah,
get
and if
over
you could say
something.
that, hey
But
man,
yeah,
like I'm not
yeah.
mad at you, I'm not pissed, I just need some time. That's just communicating
Mhm.
again. It's just saying, hey, like
But
this is where I'm at, and let's just shelve it for now. And I know some people do that.
exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say, but exactly, it goes back to the communication, like just saying, like, I just need a moment. Because
And if that works
really
for
sometimes
you,
the
and
fight is done. Yeah, but like some people, like, the fight is done. Like, a lot of times, like, regardless of the person, you can forgive them, and the fight is done. Like, you don't need them to say or do anything more, but you just need to
process.
kind of process.
And we talked about that the other day, well, a while ago. You and I talked about that. Like the heart rate thing when people are
Mhm.
arguing and all these different things. And if you know yourself well enough to be like, hey, look, I'm done arguing. I just need some time to decompress. Maybe I'm going to go for a drive, or maybe I'm going to go to the gym, or whatever you do. But it's just, again, communicating. If you leave and you're like, I just need to go to the gym and burn it off. If you just storm out of the house, that's one thing. But if you just say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym and just dink around because I need to blow some steam off, but I'm not mad. Let's just shelve it. I just, for my own, to get back to zero, I'm just going to go to the gym, or I'm just going to go to Starbucks or whatever. It's, again, you just all communicating and explaining what you're doing, instead of the other person be like, where the hell did they go? And then they're gone for
And then
2 hours, come back
exactly,
fine.
wondering if it's worse or if
Yeah,
it's
there's
just the
nothing wrong
person's.
with
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
that
yeah,
and going. Just
yeah.
communicate what you're doing, and then just like, hey, I'm just going to go do this, and then that's that. I think a lot of it, if you don't communicate, you come back after 2 hours, you feel great, and the other person's standing in the doorway like, what the fuck? You disappeared for 2 hours. The hell's going on, right?
Yeah.
Totally. I love these.
Oh,
I'm loving it. So you guys have two more. One of them, well, you have three more, but one of them you answered, so I won't ask you that one. Sorry, Taren, did you want to add something to what Leigh was saying?
No, I totally. I'm like, just
Oh,
one thing I will add is that we weren't always like this. We are both, I would say, were naturally like very hot-headed. We would get in arguments. We would go to bed angry or like storm out or whatever. Like, and we learned like that just doesn't do anything. It doesn't accomplish anything. So I would say we really worked at like staying calm, communicating, never escalating fights. Like, we are so good at diffusing. If something is about to turn into a fight, like if he says something like, that's kind of like, I use the word snippy. Like if he's grumpy and his kind of like says something snippy, or I say something kind of bitchy, we're like immediately going to apologize. Like, sorry, that came out wrong. Like, I didn't really mean to say that. Like, I'm just really tired or frustrated or whatever. So that like immediately that situation is diffused. A little spark can light, and you can either throw kindling on the fire and then throw all of your problems like big fire logs, or you can just snuff it out right away and like nothing will happen. Like, it's literally like, hey, sorry, I was tired, or I like stubbed my toe or whatever. Like, so we're so good at that now, I would say, like just
but
not letting
it's
things
good that they know that you guys got to that point, because that's
yes.
important too. Because people
I
know,
don't
like,
want people
that's
to
something.
think that, yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah,
not
no, but it's
natural for us.
good. No,
Yeah.
but it's good, because I think a lot of the time people give up so early on because they think you can't fix these issues. But I mean, you guys are proof that you can. So that's
I
great.
yeah. Like
Yeah,
if
too many
if
people expect there to be, I'm not naming any Sherry's, but too many people expect there to be no issues, right? And my
yeah.
friend, like I've talked to my other friends who are like, I never saw my parents hash anything out in front of me. So whenever the smallest issue comes up, he just like pulls the chute. He's like, no, I'm out. And I'm like, it's important to know that there is always going to be like things that need resolving. It's not to find someone that has no issues or you have no issues with. It's how you tackle it. And he's
I
only
would
learning that
say,
now.
like, just to add to that, our relationship is what it is and is as good as it is because of the issues that we've gone through and how we like handled them. Like, it's not like, oh, it's just so naturally good. Yeah, like, yes, we had like a great connection and a great friendship and we built on that, but like we've had to like rebuild, we've had to like work through stuff. And it's like the fact, just because issues come up in a relationship does not mean that you're not meant to be together, or like not even you don't have to believe in like meant to be together, but like doesn't mean that you shouldn't be together. It just means you have stuff to work on. Like, it's our relationship is great because we've tackled so many things together in our relationship, outside of our relationship, like life, work, all the stuff that goes on in life. It's made us how we are now.
I love
If
that.
that
I
makes
really
sense.
love that. No, it makes a lot of sense. I love that. And I think it's great
Yeah.
for people to know that, because honestly, like, I think you know, we all expect it to be so easy, but they always say marriage is work, and it's kind of, you have to put the work in. So you guys are
Mhm.
completely explaining that, and that's great. Um,
Yeah.
do you guys follow those date night rules? Like that you have to go
We
on one
we
date, or like, do you guys do that
No, we
weekly
kind of just do
dates or
whatever.
whatever?
We do go on date nights, but we don't have like any sort of rule about it. We just kind of try. Oh, it's been a while. We should try and And Ariana loves to go to the grandparents, and they all love having her. So we're like, oh, well, maybe drop her off and go for like an happy hour, like a little bit earlier, 3 or 4 o'clock, that kind of thing. And then but we do make an
yeah.
effort to do that.
We like day dates more than like nights, I would
Yeah,
say. Like I would love to like go like run errands and like or like go do, like he'll take me like my favorite restaurant that's like, 45 minutes away or whatever. Like it does for lunch. Like you do not have to like go out at night and like get dressed up. Like we could, but we just kind of anything can be a date night. You could literally like we could put our kid to bed and have a date night, or we could go for a walk, or just spend like 15 minutes together, like hanging
It
out,
seems
like
like you
joking
just
around about something.
it seems like you appreciate the quality time. So it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're doing it together.
yeah. Some people
Yeah.
some people just spend every waking moment together, and they're fucking miserable. It's like we just make the best of the time we do together. I don't
Yeah.
understand these people that are joined at the hip, and they're both miserable. They both don't want to be doing the other person's things, and we're like, we just make the best of the quality time that we have together instead of because we're not together all the time.
And you do need time apart too. Like I have my dance, like Leigh has like, he'll play guitar, or like his friends are all like they don't do a lot of like they do like wheeling and stuff together, but like they don't really get together for like it's funny when you use the example of like guys night. And I was like, I literally like had to make them reservations. I'm like, you guys all need to like leave the house and go hang out together. Please do that. Like spend, hang out, have guy time, but like it's just different. But like having that time alone, I think is really crucial. And like we also do not talk very much during the day at all. And I think that's totally fine. Like if something major happens, I'll call him, or if I really like am having a bad day and I want to hear his voice or whatever, like I'll call him. But like we kind of catch up when he gets home. And I feel like that's nice because we have like stuff to talk about and like we can fill each other in or whatever. Like,
You look
but we
forward
have
to
our
it
time
kind of thing.
apart. Yeah, we have our time apart too. And that's like it's important.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
I'm
Yeah.
loving all of this. My last question is so hard because you guys gave so many good points. Like I'm like, I mean, this is a really really good podcast. I really loved it. So this is gonna be hard. I don't even know how you're gonna answer because honestly, you already gave so much good advice. What is the most important advice you would give someone who is about to get married?
I think the most important thing is understanding that it's not your partner's job to make you happy. Like if you think you're going to get married and if you're not already happy with your life and you think getting married is going to make you happy, it's not going to. Like it's your job to make yourself happy. Like you need to have your own goals. You need to have like whether it's career goals or like fitness goals, health goals, hobby goals. It doesn't have to be any particular thing, but like you have to be able to make yourself happy outside of your partner. And I think we both have a lot of things that we like that make us happy other than each other. Like of course we both make each other happy, but I have lots of things that makes me happy and he has lots of things that make him happy. And you can't expect somebody else to like fill a void in you. Like if you have a void, you're gonna have to fill it yourself. And then like a partner should be like icing on the cake in life,
That's
I
a really
think.
good one. No, that's a
Yeah.
really good one.
Yeah, way
Do you
too
have
many
one?
people do that. Like Taryn said, like, you got to be in a good place yourself. So it's way too many people we know, even people we know, like they go into a relationship, with the idea that it's gonna, oh well, our dating is rocky, let's get engaged. Being engaged is a hit and miss, let's get married. Oh, or the people that
Have a baby.
have a baby thinking it's gonna solve their problems, right? And it's just wild. Like, so if anyone, like the advice side of it would be like, make sure you are 100% like happy with yourself and where you are and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
like Terrence said, it's just this other person should be an addition to your life, not trying to fill a massive hole that you've got, because it'll never live up to your expectations. If you're going into marriage to get that, they won't. It'll never. You'll just be end up upset and divorced and whatever. It's too many people just use it for the wrong thing. So if you just
I
know
think that's
know that you're good going in, right?
I think that's a really good piece of advice too, because I also hear this a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, and I'm sure you guys probably hear it too. Is a lot of people like, oh, I really want to travel, but I'm waiting to meet someone to travel with. I really want to join this whatever sport, but I want someone to do it with.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
want, and they just keep waiting, you know, and it's like they're not fulfilling themselves. They're waiting for someone else to come and fulfill them and to
Yeah.
start their life with somebody else, but they don't really have a positive, healthy life or for someone to come enter into. They're just waiting for
Exactly.
someone else to save them and create that
No
life
one's
for
coming to
them.
save you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love
it
that
yeah.
saying,
shows
like,
too. It shows in
yeah,
relationships when they're not in a good place and they're trying to just like power through. You can't do it forever. You just can't.
and I
This
think
was
that you
so
can
good.
be like not necessarily where you want to be in life. Like I wouldn't say when Leigh and I got together we were where we wanted to be in life, but like if you're both like, hey, like these are the goals that I want to work on, the other person's like, great, these are the goals that I want to work on. Let's like support each other, lift each other up, help each other through these goals. And like I think Leigh and I have both gotten each other through so much. Like I know you
Mhm.
guys talked about like the my fitness competition, I think, in one of them. And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Leigh is the one who convinced me to become a personal trainer. I was so overwhelmed with like the process, and he wrote it out for me. He's like, I just want you to do this first step. Like go do this first step right now and come back. And because he like set that up for me, like I went rolling with it and I got certified, and now like I have the job that I have now in the fitness industry. Like we've support each other through so much, and like support each other's goals. You know, I don't know how much he's talked about like his goals and what he's done, but like you don't have to be like in a perfect place, but you have to like understand that the other, like it's not going to fill a void. It's not going to, like, a relationship is just one part of life. You have to like have other things going on too.
But I think what you're saying is like you should be moving towards your goal even if you're by yourself and not waiting for someone else to do the goal, right? Like it's okay if like
Exactly.
let's say I want to become a personal trainer, my first step is to like get myself into the shape I want to be in order to train and go to the court. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe before I meet someone, I'm not like sitting at home like thinking about it. I'm actually going to the gym every day, getting my body to where I want it to be in order to
Mm-hmm.
take the next couple steps, you know? So I see what you're saying. Like as long as you're on the
Yeah.
path, that's what's important, and you're
Yeah.
trying to have a fulfilled, happy, content life and not just sitting around waiting for someone else to start your life.
Right. And I think if somebody is like single and wants that, they want to find somebody, the first thing that they should look at is like, if I want to attract this type of person who, like, say, like wants to travel or is very ambitious or is like really fun to be around or is really like I can really talk to, then they need to look at becoming the type of person that would attract the type of person that they want. So
Before we
like
finish,
Exactly.
you should tell Sherry
Exactly.
about the list you wrote out for like qualities.
Oh
I'll
yes.
never
Okay.
remember. I'll never remember. So
No, you won't remember. Like the way he tells stories, it's like, oh, how did it go again? Yeah. So when I was like newly single, like from a frustrating relationship, I would say, I made a list of, and I'd already met Leigh at this point, but obviously was not thinking about him in that sort of way. But I made a list of qualities, which I think everybody should do this very carefully. Make a list of qualities that they're looking for in the person that they would like to like share their life with. So I made this list and it was like literally like everything that Leigh is this list, but like
Oh no way.
my last boyfriend before Leigh was very like there was a lot he was very like patient. He went along with everything I wanted to do, like never complained about everything, was like very easygoing. So in my mind, I'm thinking like I'm not thinking about those things. I'm not thinking about those qualities. I'm thinking about all the qualities that like were that he didn't have. So it was like, you know, like ambitious and like funny and all this stuff. So but like the things that I did not put on the list are definitely the things that like I didn't put patient on the list. I didn't put like will come
You
shopping
ended
with
up with
me all the
Leigh.
time. I didn't put like will come to family events without complaining. Like and so it's kind of funny because like whatever you forget to put on the list, like it will literally be there, but it's obviously like nobody is perfect, and the qualities that he has I'm very thankful for. But I definitely think anybody should do that. He literally was like already in my life and like became that person probably within a month of me writing out that list. It happened very
That's so
quickly.
cute.
Yeah.
That's so cute. I love that. I love that you admit that he's not patient though. You're like, don't forget the little one.
no, yeah, you don't forget that part. It's
Yeah.
calm like a bomb. I've been described as.
I call like a bomb. Yeah.
I
I can
really
handle you.
loved having you on, Taren, by the way.
Oh,
This was like honestly, like I think this was like a bombshell of advice. Like this was a really good podcast. So I can't thank you guys enough for like sharing your relationship so openly for like listeners, and like it really was eye opening. So I don't know. I mean,
I'm
thank
glad.
you so much. It was great.
Yeah.
We may have to switch you out with Leigh.
Yes,
No.
100%.
I'm kidding. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was really fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to make us bring other guests, because honestly, I think we had more revelations this podcast than any other. And this
Wow.
is the 11th one. she might end up she might kick us both out and
Yeah,
hold her own.
yeah.
So,
She should.
No, we're all bringing
Before you know
something
it.
different to the table, but I love chatting with me. It's been super fun chatting with you guys. It's like my favorite topic is like people and how people work and what makes them
Development and
tick.
stuff.
Yeah, I love all that stuff.
It is such a fun topic. I know. I remember when I first asked, Lee's like, but I'm not single. I'm like, it's not about being single. It's like interacting with people, and you guys are married, so it's even better. It's like a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Sherry.
And we'll have just Leigh back, unfortunately,
Next
week. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.